Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am recording this session, and I will send it out to you as soon as I can, along with the PowerPoint. All right, sorry, just letting a few more people in. So welcome to the new SBT Leader Training. So during the summer, we always do new leader trainings, and then in August, September, we do some new leader trainings as well. But what happens is many school-based team leaders end up starting September, October, November. So the new leaders kind of get lost in the shuffle. So the last couple of years, we've always done like a new leader training for those who kind of start a little bit later. So that's what we're going to do today. We're changing it around a little bit, well, a lot. It's going to be different than it has in the past. Sometimes they're a little bit overwhelming because we really give you the whole entire information. It's usually a 2-day training all at once, but we're kind of going to try to break it up and just give you a little bit at a time because it really is very overwhelming. And the last thing we want to do to you is overwhelm you. We already know how overwhelmed you are. But being a school-based team leader is really, you guys already know, it's a lot of work, right? It really should be a position on its own. But unfortunately, it's not. And it is a lot of work. And you just have to take it one step at a time, right? You're thrown into a position, and many of you might be guidance counselors or, have other positions. And this is an added responsibility, and you're almost expected to know how to run everything, and you don't. So you just have to take a deep breath, take it one step at a time. And we're going to help you through everything. So today, we're just going to touch on what we really feel you need to know right now. Many of you might not even be running your meetings yet. And hopefully, we're going to today help you go through some of that so you can start running those meetings and feel a little bit more comfortable. But it really is impossible, to have a conversation and for me or Carrie to teach you everything you need to know in one sitting. So we're going to go through it step by step. Okay, sorry if I'm pausing. There are just some people that need to be let in. Okay, so I'm going to go through this. We're recording it as well. We're going to send everything out for you after, but we're going to do some hands-on activities so that you're going to have information that you need. So what I want you to do is just take a moment and in the chat, if you would put something that you already know about your SBT or SBT meetings or anything like that. What do you already know about school-based teams? Yep, absolutely. They need data. Yep, you have to have a lot of organization. Team collaborates to help students use evidence and analysis. Perfect. Teamwork. The goal of problem solving, not having an end goal of ESE eligibility. Perfect. Data. Yep. Parents must be notified and data will be discussed as well as next steps. Perfect. Consistent problem solving. All right. Excellent. Intensive and supplemental intervention documentation. Perfect. Okay. Good. You guys already know. All right, so let me just go over some expectations. Engage in activities and conversation. You can unmute. We're a small group if you have any questions, if you need me to slow down or repeat something for you. Provide wait time when communicating so that we're not talking over each other. Please be present in learning. You can have your video camera on or off, whatever you're comfortable with. That's fine with me. I always tell people I like when you guys have your cameras on. It just makes it a little bit easier for me so I can read your faces. But if you're not comfortable with that, go ahead and just turn it off. I've talked to pictures before. we've done trainings where everybody has their camera off and we wonder if we're even training anybody, but whatever you're comfortable with is fine. If you have to leave for some reason, just put it in the chat. We want to make sure that you're getting everything. So we want to just know if you have to go someplace. We understand how busy you are, and sometimes you have to come and go during our trainings. We understand that. All right, so you will all be added to, if you're not already in it, because you might be, into an FY23 new SBT Leaders Google Classroom. I might not have added you yet. If not, you will be. And there's also a Padlet. Let me see if I can figure out how to drop that over here. Let's see if I click on it. Copy link. This is because some charter schools cannot get into the Google Classroom. So that is the Padlet. The Padlet will take you to, that link will take you to the Padlet. And that has all of the same information that is in the Google Classroom. So anybody can go into that. Sorry, somebody else is trying to get in. I don't know who that person is. Okay, let's see what happens. All right. All right, so today, what we're going to go through is you're going to learn how to run an advanced report. We are going to, I'm going to show you how to put in an eSupport ticket to get your edit access for SIS and SSS if you have not already done that. We'll discuss the frequency of your SBT meetings. You'll learn the shared responsibility of SBT meetings and the documentation that's required at these meetings. I'm also going to quickly go through how to update SIS and SSS, and then how to update your spreadsheet if you are keeping one. If not, I'm going to introduce you to the spreadsheet and show you how you can utilize that to keep yourself organized and your team. All right, so I'm going to talk about what is MTSS. MTSS is multi-tier system of supports. One system, many supports. So when people think about MTSS, they just think about the academics. But MTSS is your whole system on your campus. Academic, behavior, social, emotional. All of these people are involved in your framework for MTSS. It involves everybody on your campus, your school counselor, your cafeteria staff, ELL, ESE, administration, paraprofessionals. Everybody is involved in your multi-tier system of support. Everyone, multi-tiered system of supports. They're all involved in it. It's not just for academics. When students first get out of the car, whoever's opening that door for them, right? That's who's setting the tone for the students. That person is part of your framework. So it's not just academics. So when we're looking at our framework, this is our continuum. Now, when we're talking about academics and behavior, we look at our continuum of supports. Core is your tier 1, right? That is what everybody on campus receives. Supplemental is our tier 2. And then intensive is our tier 3. So the goal is for students to be successful in school. They receive the level of support that they need right when they need it. Using the decision trees, wherever they fall, that's the level of support that they need. They receive that level of support, hoping to close that gap. Students who fall in intensive will receive intensive supports right off the bat, hopefully closing that gap and going back down to core. And as you can see, the arrow goes both ways because our goal is success in school. It's not a pathway to ESE eligibility. It's a pathway to receive success. Now, no matter what we do, there will be some students who do need to go to gain consent for an evaluation. For those students, we have to make sure we're following this process with fidelity. We cannot gain consent and go to eligibility unless we follow all of these components that we need through RTI. So whenever we do any trainings, we always talk about our continuum of supports for students. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do as a team right now is everybody's going to run an advanced report. I'm going to show you the easiest and most simple way to run an advanced report. Everybody's going to leave here with their advanced report for today. There are different types of advanced reports you can run. You can make them as big as you want. You can make them as small and simple as you want. We're going to do the most, I think, the most beneficial, simple report. So it's an advanced report. It's going to give you a list of all the students on your campus who have an icon for school-based team, an icon for tier 2, and an icon for tier 3. You might have your own list that you've created. However, this list is so important because you might have students on your campus you don't even know that have these icons, right? They might have come from another school. Maybe they enrolled and you didn't know that they were supposed to be receiving supplemental or intensive interventions, or they were supposed to be having been met on in school-based team. Or I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago about students that we're finding who haven't been met on in many years, homeless students who haven't been closed at the end of the year. So it's really important to run your advanced report and clean that up before you do anything every year. And then maybe even every month you want to run a new advanced report. So when I share this presentation with you, you're going to see, and you don't have to do this yet because I'm going to model it and we're all going to do it together. On the next couple of slides, I give you exactly the directions on how to do it. So it shows you exactly what to do on the next couple of slides. But what we're going to do is, in a minute, I'm going to walk you through it. Okay, so I'm just clicking right now so you can see this is the one where it gets a little tricky over here, where you have to go into more search options and select your SBT and exactly all of that. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So let's go into SIS. You're going to go into your SIS over here, right? Everybody sees this SIS student info system. This is that purple one. All right, go ahead and click on SIS. I'm going to go into, actually, I'm going to do it for you too. And I think I'm just going to go into one of your schools. All right, I'm going to go into Franklin Boynton Beach because I know you're brand new. Okay. So what I want you to do is, everybody should have a screen that looks similar or something like this. You're going to have all of this over here, right on the left-hand side. Go to the backpack that says students and click on students. And then go down to advanced report. Does everybody see that? And then click on it, the words advanced report. And then you're going to wait a little bit and it's going to take you to this screen. Okay. If your computer is slow or anything, just let me know so I don't go too fast. All right. Now, I know you want to look at all the options there and everything, but do that later. Stay with me now. All right. Now, it gives you all of these available fields, right? And like I said, you can look at all those fields later if you want to take some things in or put something out or however you want to do that. But right now, we're going to click on the very top one that says Student Demographics, Student Demo. Click on Student Demo. And you're going to get all these choices. For now, just click the very top one that says last, first, middle. And as soon as you click it, you're going to see that that's going to go right over into this field to include in report. Now, if I wanted to get rid of it, I would just click this red X and it would go back over here. But I want to put it back right there. Okay. Now you have all these other options. I'm going to select grade over here as one of the choices because I think that's important also. It helps us sort. So I'm going to pick grade. And I'm just going to put those two. Sometimes you have too many options. It makes the report way too big to look at. So let's do a real simple report for now. Later on, you can play around with it. Okay, now I'm going to go back and click on student demo and it's going to make that close up. And I'm going to scroll down, take the bar, scroll it down, and I'm going to look for a school-based team. And here's my school-based team. And I'm going to click on that. And it's going to open up, but then everything's going to kind of jump around a little bit. Oh, no, it's not because I closed it. It's good. All right. The only thing I'm going to choose now is SBT tier. Those are the only three that I want. I can choose other options here, but it's going to make my report way too much to look at. And I like a nice, all I want right now is to know who on my campus, right? Who are the students, what grade are they in, and what level of support are they receiving? That's all I need so far. Okay. Now I'm going to go over here where it says more search options. Does everybody see that? It's on the left under student with the box. And I'm going to click on that box. More search options. Give it a click. Did everybody see that? Denise, did you see it? It was right over. Ooh, it's going now. It was right on the left. It was right over here. It said more search options. I don't even know what I just did here. It was right. I don't even know how I got to the screen.
Sorry, I'm talking and I'm on mute.
It was
I'm
right
agreeing
over,
with you, but I'm on mute.
it was right over here on the left.
SBT again.
Yep. And then you're going to go to SBT.
Okay, got it.
It was more search options. It brought down all of these.
Right.
Yep. Now go to school-based team.
Got it.
Okay. Then SBT tier. Does everybody see that? Click on that. And I want you to put it, click on SBT tier 2 and tier 3. All three of these. Everybody with me? All three of these. Okay. After that, you're going to come over here and just click Run Report. Click Run Report. And that's going to give you, then I have to go through and figure out what is going on. I should have that amount of files for students. So go through each student, click on each student's name and see. We found a whole bunch of homeless ones that needed to be closed. We found a whole bunch of 2017, 2018. We found new students that came in where we need those files and contact their previous schools. Go ahead, Denise.
I was going to ask how to print it, but never mind. I found it.
Yeah, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can.
I'm so used to seeing it at the top for some.
Yeah, or you can save it and give it a name, and then later on you can find it as well. You can just open it up again. Yep. All right. Good. So now everybody has a report. So you're all going to go through and match up your files to that report and clean up those reports. So in the presentation, I have a link here also for running an advanced report for SBT students. So if you forget or you can't follow the directions and you click on this link, it'll take you to the directions to run the report. Any questions about running an advanced report for SBT students? Everybody's good with that? Comfortable with that?
Joy, I have a question.
Yes, Pam.
How did you say we sort it?
If you just sort it and then I'll go ahead and save it. You can, some people take this and put it in an Excel document after it's cleaned up, and then they can filter it and sort it however they want. Now, here's the other thing. When we did this, remember I said I want to do the easiest one. There's a filter there for ESC also. So you might want, when you're doing your advanced report, there's one that you can put in ESE students, right? So you can look at those and see which ones are ESE students. Because sometimes when they become ESE eligible, we forget to remove the SBT icon. But sometimes when they're ESE, I know at some schools, SBT will say, okay, let me make a list for my ESE coordinator so that ESE coordinator knows these students are still going through SBT if we're looking at another eligibility. So it'll help you, organize all of that as well. Go ahead, Denise.
Sorry. So if we do run the report SBT, but then we click also ESC, it'll tell us which students. Because I know, like here, a couple of our students, they were still getting SBT services, SBT, but they were already ESC for an exceptionality. So if I put in ESC, it'll take those students out, or it'll
add in the students' eligibility. If they have an eligibility, you'll see the eligibility in the advanced report. I can help you with that.
And it'll show me if they're still labeled as an SBT, which then I would have to go in and clean up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Possibly. You just want to make sure that they're not looking at another eligibility.
Okay.
Because sometimes they're SLD looking at language impaired, or language impaired looking at SLD, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's when you would go back and look at notes to see what they're considering. Yep. Yes. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. E-ticket. Edit access to SIS and SSS. So I'm going to go through this with you. Is there anybody who does not have access or edit access to SIS or SSS?
I do not.
Okay. So let's go through this. I'm going to go through the directions, and then anybody else who...
I have SIS, but not SSS.
Okay. So let's go through this, and then those of you who do not have it will put in for it. That's perfect, because I'll show you both how to do it. So you're going to go in right now and find the e-support in your portal. Here, I'm going to do it with you. But let me just show you these directions too. So I have the directions here. And if you ever need them again, I have both for a charter and non-charter. But let me show you how to do it right now. Let me go here and here. Okay, so go to eSupport. So if you don't have both of that access and you need it, let's go do that now. So put eSupport in your portal and then click on eSupport tile. Okay. So for both of them, you're going to go into SIS. So there are two different ways you can find it. The easiest for me is it's always a top request. Do you guys have this top request over here on the left? It's always one of those choices. Student information system. So you can just click on that and it'll take you right to it. So that's one way to do it. Another way is if you put it in the search and you just type in SIS, it'll come up there as well. So one of those two ways, click on it and it's going to look just like this. Okay, and then you're going to click on submit request. And it's going to open up. Let me just unshare and share because you're not seeing. Mine. Actually, you know what? Mine has, because it has like personal information on it. So let me just go back into my presentation so you can see. Okay, so you're going to click on that submit request. All right, so if you're a non-charter, you're going to do this. Your username should be in there already with your ID number. Then requested completion date. I always put in today's date. Type of request. You're going to put in add or change access. It's a drop down. And then is this a charter school? If you're not a charter school, put no. If you are a charter school, put yes. No matter what you pick, the next couple of drop downs are going to change. So let me go for non-charters first, and then we'll do the charter ones. So if you put no for charter school, it's going to say role requested. And you're going to have to scroll down and find the one that says RTI SBT Psych. Allows user to edit the school-based team tab. And then you're also going to, on additional role requested, do SSS edit, allows users to edit SSS forms. So non-charter schools, you're going to choose both of those drop downs. I think it gives you like 3 lines you can choose from. So choose both of those two. And then after that, you have a couple of questions you have to answer, either yes or no. It depends on your job title. And then at the very top, you'll see submit. Just click submit. Any questions about that? Okay. I'm going to move on to the charter schools if we're okay with that. All right. Charters. You have same information on the top. It should have your name and your number. Requested completion date. I always just put today's date. Type of request is add or change access in the drop down. And then is this request for a charter school? You'll put yes. And then you're going to see your drop downs change. And you're going to select the one that says charter school edit. Edit access to school information. After that, you have a couple of yes or no's, ESC coordinator or contact, and then it might say remove access or something like that. But in the box for comments, you're going to write in, I am the SBT leader, or if you're the ESC coordinator, that's okay too, because usually access is given to the SBT coordinator. I'm sorry, SBT leader, ESC coordinator. So you'll write, I am the SBT leader, or I am the ESC coordinator at name of your school, and you need to write in, I need SSS edit access and SIS edit access. If you already have one, then just put in the other one that you need. So Camille, you'll just put in, I need SSS edit access.
So what, I'm doing a long explanation. I just don't want them to accidentally take my edit from SIS away.
Okay, so you can put that in there, and you can put I need to continue with, or I need to still have, or something like that.
Yeah, and the person who got it, she's left the school, so
Yeah.
I think need to take that away from her.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we already did. But if not, you can just put yes, or
Okay, thank you very much.
you're welcome.
I mean, I wouldn't know if I have SSS access because I know I was looking at it before, but now
If you didn't put in for it, you wouldn't have it, but I'll show you.
I did put in for it, but just so I could see it, but it didn't seem to happen. So
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. All right. And then you're going to go to the very top where it says submit and click submit. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? Yeah, usually it's 2 people on campus that have SSS edit access. All right. And then if you should need it later, the directions, I have a link for how to put in information for that. Okay. All right. So now let's, oops, sorry. I was wondering what that button did. Now I know. Okay. So let's talk about the frequency of SBT meetings. So your SBT meetings can occur weekly, bi-weekly, every other week. Your mandatory meetings are as needed. So what we, and it depends really, what, usually elementary are weekly, depending on the amount of students you have in SBT, of course. Secondary are more bi-weekly, every other week, and then mandatory as needed. Sometimes we recommend you schedule them every week. This way, if you need to cancel, you can just cancel it. Or if you have no one on the agenda for that week, you can just cancel that week. Your academic meetings can occur every 8 to 10 weeks. But remember, you're not only going to be meeting every 8 to 10 weeks, you're going to be meeting every other week, right? Because not all students are going to be starting at the same time. Some students may need more time. I've met with, been on meetings before where we meet with some students and we're like, you know what, we don't need to meet on this student again for more than 10 weeks. Let's do 12 weeks. Let's do 14 weeks. Because remember, goals are based on 16 weeks, fall to winter, winter to spring. Behavior meetings might be more often. They might be more often. The team will decide when we need to meet again. And then your mandatory meetings will occur as needed. So Camille, that's why we suggest you schedule them every week. And then if you have to test this week, you cancel that week. Because what happens is if you schedule every other week and you have to cancel here and there, sometimes you're going to go a whole month without meeting. And you really want to make sure you're meeting on those students. Okay. So this is really important. Shared responsibility at your problem-solving school-based team meetings. We have to have shared responsibility. The SBT leader cannot take on all of those responsibility, all of that responsibility, right? Your meetings will not run efficiently. And what I have been saying to schools is, if you have an SBT leader leave, right, your meeting should not fall apart. Or if you have one member of the team leave, your meeting should not fall apart. If your team is really a true team somebody else should really be able to jump into that role or share that role. That's a true SBT school-based team. I used to, when I was out of school, I was the ESC coordinator, and we had a leader, and she went on maternity leave, and she was gone for 3 months. And we all had to jump in, and we just kept on going because everybody knew everybody else's responsibility, everybody's job. So we all kind of took a little bit of it, and we just kept going with it. That's how it needs to look. If the team falls apart, then you really don't have a true team. All right. So as the SBT leader, these are your responsibilities and your role: to set and send out the weekly or bi-weekly agenda, right? You're going to facilitate those meetings. So at the meetings, you're going to follow that agenda. You'll review the information presented, and you're going to keep those members on track. And organize. You're going to be the one collecting all the papers, putting them in the files, making sure they're in nice, neat, tucked in those binder clips, making sure that SIS, SSS is accurate, completed, in charge of the paperwork. Doesn't mean you have to fill out all that paperwork, but you're going to make sure that it's being done. So that's your role, your responsibility if you're the leader at your school. These are all of the other roles and responsibility. So you'll have somebody as the recorder, right? Somebody who's going to take the notes. The SBT leader doesn't have to be the one that's taking the notes, right? Writing down the facts, making sure everybody signs. That's what the recorder does. They're in charge of the conference notes. Then hopefully there'll be somebody who's the case liaison. That case liaison is the person who supports the interventionist's questions. So not all of those people, not all of the interventionists are going to that SBT leader because the SBT leader has so much going on. So a lot of the times there'll be a liaison designated maybe to each grade level to answer those questions and help out that way. They might help collect baseline. We're trying to get the teachers to start to learn how to collect baseline. Checking to make sure that the intervention is being done and monitors the fidelity of the interventions. Then if you are lucky enough to have an administrator sit on your team, right? They're going to just support the decision-making process. Make sure that you have systems in place. And then, of course, those critical cases. Sometimes admin cannot come, but I've been at meetings where we will invite them and say, we're talking about this student, especially with behavior cases, we need you to come to this meeting. The data clerk, that could be the person who is updating SIS, making sure that SIS matches everything else, all of those dates align. And then somebody to keep everybody on track during the meetings, right? Everybody always wants to be that timekeeper, but it's so hard as a peer to tell everybody else to stop their side conversations and let's keep going. So that could be another role at the team, but all shared responsibility. All right. Then what you want to do is make sure you're setting norms for your meetings. Everybody needs to arrive on time at the meeting, right? Be respectful. Listen to everybody else's thoughts, ideas, especially when, and I always say this, you're going to have an expert at the table, right? You as the SBT leader are the expert in some areas. If you have a BHP there, they're the expert for behavior. ELL person, that might be the expert for ELL students for that guidance. ESE teacher or a coordinator, they're the expert about ESE. You want to have everybody present in the discussion, make decisions based on student information and the student data. And then remember, all information has to remain confidential. These are all in the Google Classroom or in the Padlet for you. And it's also in our MTSS portal, which I'm going to take you through at the end of the presentation. All right, any questions about the shared responsibility? Sometimes I know it's hard to get that, right? It really is hard, but I'm really hoping it's not one or two people sitting at a table making decisions for these students, because you can't make these decisions on your own. Okay, so let's talk about required documentation. Winston, I'll go back at the end and give you the link. Here, wait 1 second. Let me see if I can put it back in. I'm going to put it in the, there you go. I dropped it in the chat for you. All right. So required documentation. So this is the 2108. This is your attendance log for every single meeting. You're welcome. Every time you have a meeting, everybody in attendance will initial. So everybody's going to sign just once on each sheet and then initial when or if they're at that meeting that they are in attendance. So you should have a record of this. Just hold on to it. It's ongoing every time you have a meeting, right? This just shows who's in attendance at the meeting. This is also required. This is your conference form. So it's required to take notes about each individual student at every meeting. Make sure you're filling out the demographic information, the student number, the grade, the student first and last name, and the meeting date. The other day I was talking to a resource teacher, and we were trying to figure something out about a student, and the meeting date was missing. Make sure you're putting in the year also. Everybody's going to sign and put their title that they were in that meeting. So this should match that attendance. The confidentiality and attendance log. And the dates, everything should match up. If they were there at the meeting, they're just going to sign it. And within the notes, you don't have to capture everything that was discussed, but you are going to want to capture the important documentation, because I always say, go back to the notes. What was the conclusion? Where did we leave off? It's important to put the conclusion so you know where to go back to, look at it, and see where you're going next. Student will continue in supplemental intervention, receiving this, that, and the other thing, and where we're going to go, right? Being progress monitored through grade 1, high frequency words for a goal of 26. Okay. New referrals. If you have a teacher, elementary or secondary, that wants to put in for a new referral for a student, this is the documentation. Progress monitoring plan, the PMP, student information checklist, 1 observation, 1 parent conference, and the intervention data. And I'm going to show you what that looks like on the next couple of slides. This is what it looks like. Here's the PMP, right? There's one for elementary and there's one for secondary. This is part of the SBT referral packet. So this will be completed for a new referral, PMPs. If it's academic, this is what the conference staffing record looks like because there's going to be a parent conference. Observation, someone's going to do the observation. You can have another teacher come in and do an observation, sticking to facts. This is the progress monitoring log. There has to be some data provided, right? Because the teachers are responsible to provide supplemental right away if that's where the student falls. If the student is making progress with the PMP, then you don't have to submit the packet. But if they're providing it and the student is not making progress, then that packet can be submitted to school-based team. And then that checklist, elementary or secondary.
Joy, I just had a quick question
Yes.
with the data.
Yes.
So to take a data point, is it like 4 consecutive days in a week, or is it like 4 consecutive days, like random? I mean, you know how it is, like we're in meetings or whatever, and like if they're absent one day, then you know you only got 3 days. We're kind of running into an issue with like the CST kids where we've taken data and it's been, you know, 4 days that we've seen them, but it hasn't been 4 days in a specific week, and they're not wanting to take that data from us.
Yeah, it has to be 4 days in 1 week. So, and the reason why we actually went to 4 instead of 5 is because a lot of the weeks were off, right? We have holidays or things like that. So we did go to 4. Now you can do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, intervene and progress monitor on Thursday. So you can do 4, but you have to do intervention at least 4 days in 1 week to progress monitor.
Okay.
Yep. We have to teach, right? If we're not teaching, we're not going to expect the student to move on their progress monitoring.
Right. I understand that. I just know that there's just going to be several kids that like don't ever get a data point because they might be missing 1 day, and then we're only pulling 4 days. So if they miss one, or if we've got another meeting, then
Why aren't you pulling 5 days?
because I'm SAI and SBT, so we have meetings on Mondays.
One of the things that one of the schools was doing was they were rotating the time on Mondays on certain days. Like they were doing 10 to 12 and then 12 to 2. So it wasn't the same group of students that were always missing their interventions.
Okay.
So there were just other options that they were thinking about. So it's not always, because it really is supposed to be, state statute is every single day for 30 minutes. So 5 days a week for 30 minutes. So there were other ways around it almost, you know,
Okay.
just as a consideration to allow for that.
Okie doke.
Yep. But you can do 4 days and then on that 5th day intervene and go ahead and progress monitor. Any other questions about that? Okay. Now, if the student is already receiving, right, that was new referrals. If a student is already receiving supplemental or intensive, you're going to meet on those students about every 8 to 10 weeks to see how they're doing. Now, supplemental students are progress monitored every other week. Intensive students are progress monitored every week. So for those students, you already have a packet. When you meet on those students, this is what you're going to need. You're going to have your conference staffing notes. You're going to collect the progress monitoring log, and you're going to take a look at their graph to see how they are performing. And then if there's any other data that the team is suggesting or recommending or want, right? They might want an updated oral reading record, or they might want an updated iReady or something like that, that as well. But this is what you're going to look at as you're meeting on students. Because we don't have to go back and do a whole nother packet. Go ahead, Denise.
I'm sorry, just a quick question. I thought I had read in the SBT, sorry, they're talking in my ear. In the SBT, whatever, thingamajiggy,
Handbook?
that we have to meet every 6 to 8 weeks. Is that, because that's what I've been doing with our students for tier 2 and tier, you know, like, or like every 6 to 8 weeks I'm meeting on them, but now I'm reading it's every 8 to 10 weeks.
8 to 10 weeks.
Okay.
You might not have the updated handbook.
Okay. It's the one that I got at the beginning of the school year when I started this position. So,
Okay.
but I
I'll look
couldn't,
and
unless
see.
maybe I misread or something, but I was doing it every like 6 to 8 weeks. So I can actually kind of, okay, 8 to 10.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And that's general, right? It doesn't mean that you have to. We might be meeting on a student that we're really concerned about. And we might say, you know what, I want to meet on this student again in 6 weeks, but generally 8 to 10 weeks, because we need enough data to make decisions on students.
Okay.
Now, if you have a teacher and they're giving a progress monitoring tool and that student right away is going down, 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 you're going to want to meet on that student much earlier.
Right. It's a case. I mean, and I have students where, you know, it's again, very low. So I meet on them more often just to kind of get a more updated, but I thought in general, it was 6 to 8 weeks, not 8 to 10.
Yeah. We used to do 6 to 8, but now we're collecting more data because we want to give students time.
Okay.
All right. All right. So now let's take a look at behavior. So these are the requirements for students who are being referred for behavior. I'm going to show you what those forms look like as well. So a conference form, right? And then another conference form. So these are going to be 2 parent meetings, right? We're always going to meet first, talk to the parent, say, this is what's happening, this is what I'm going to do about it. And then we're going to meet again with the parent and say whether or not this is working. So this is the teacher. What they're going to meet with the parent. Observation. And especially for behavior, I always recommend having somebody else come on in and do an observation. Sticking to the facts. And then the checklist. Elementary, secondary. If a student has more than one teacher can go ahead and complete a checklist, both for academic and behavior. So if the student is receiving supplemental tier 2 for behavior already, okay, Alexis, have fun. Then this is what's going to be required every time you're meeting on that student, right? You're going to have those conference notes. You're going to have that log or documentation, because for behavior, you might not be using this RTI log. You might be using a different form, depending on who is doing that intervention. And then you're going to have a graph, because we're graph behavior also. And then anything else that the team is recommending. We can't meet on students without data. It's not going to be a discussion of, hey, how's it going? Tell me about your student, right? We have to look at the data. And then we have our mandatories. These are mandatory meetings that we must have on students. Homelessness, the McKinney-Vento students, our foster care students. Any level 1, 2, or 3 with that asterisk in that student code of conduct. The reentry after Florida Mental Health Act, that used to be called Baker Act. Reentry after DJJ or Alt Ed. Teen pregnancy and prior to hospital homebound considerations. For those, we just need the 2106. And then depending on, there might be other forms depending on what you're doing, right? We might have a safety plan, or we might need to meet to do that safety plan together. But this is what is needed during our mandatory SBT meetings. It depends who is going to complete that mandatory. That depends on your school and how that is all, who puts it into the system. And then whoever's putting it into the system needs to have communication with the SBT leader so you know to have that meeting. All right, any questions about that? Go ahead, Aaliyah.
On that mandatory form,
Yes.
I was not filling those out like for our McKinney-Vento kiddos. Should I go back and do it from when we met on them? I mean, I did the conference staffing log.
It's okay. Just as you move on, you can do it.
Okay, and then this gets uploaded or this gets just put in the file?
Just in the file.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about your required documentation?
Just to make sure I'm doing the McKinney-Vento, it's only twice a year, correct? That we meet?
Yeah, you can meet, yes, at least. If you need to meet more, you meet more, yes.
But if because in the beginning, I guess I thought it was, I got all my McKinney-Ventos, and then we've met 6 to 8 or weeks later. So
you
we've
don't
already
need to.
technically met twice on them, and they're doing fine.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
I told the teacher just to kind of keep an eye on them, and if we need to bring them back, then we can always, okay.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. And then if they're academic and McKinney-Vento, then you can always do one meeting, or behavior. You can always call it both types of meetings if you are. Yep.
So I apologize. I had to use the restroom. You were talking about documentation, and you don't upload the conference notes, right? You're just uploading the graphs.
We're uploading the graphs. Yeah, we're kind of going towards uploading more because we're noticing that if we should get to eligibility, our psychs need more of the data uploaded, but for now the graphs, yes. You can upload. There are a lot of people who like to upload the conference notes. It just makes it a little bit easier, but uploading the graphs.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so SIS and SSS. When you get this down over here, this is a link to the video training I did last week. It was 2 hours specifically for SIS and SSS. I'm not going to go through all of that because we don't have all that time, but I'm going to go through just a little bit and then we can play around with it a little bit as well. Winston, I'm going to show you how to get the handbook in a little while. So, yes, Sarah, you're going to put it in SSS, the graph. Okay, so what I want to do is show you just a couple of these, and then I'll go into SIS, SSS, and we can just kind of have a discussion about what it is that you guys really need. If you weren't able to come to the training, I really highly, highly recommend watching the Adobe because I feel like it was so thorough. But it's just so much that I can't go through all of it with you right here and now, but I can go through general parts of it with you. So this is a training tile. You can always go into the training tile to play around with, and we're going to do that in a little bit. But here are some of the most important parts of it. For SBT tracking in SIS, you need to complete this every time you meet on a student. And you're just going to go through and fill in all of this information. This is in SIS, and this is what's going to generate your SBT icon. As you go through it and you click on it, you'll get drop downs or you'll just put in the information. This is SBT tracking. Now, here's an example of putting in that information. One of the important things is if you are closing it, you need to close every single date. So when you're going through your advanced reports, if you see one that looks like it needed to be closed, sometimes people were putting a close date in just one line. Needs to be closed in every single line. Every time we have a meeting, we're going to fill out a line. So you can see they met on this student 9/7/2020. This is a fake one. And then met again 11/16/2020. Go ahead, Alexandra.
If a student is found eligible for ESE and that's the reason closed, would the case close date be like the date that they met, like for eligibility for that
Yes.
student?
Yep. It would actually be the date that they were yes.
Okay.
Yep. Found eligible. And here's one of the things we discussed too. If they are found ineligible, you have to make sure you're having that conversation with the ESE coordinator. Why were they found ineligible and what's going to happen next? Were they ineligible due to lack of RTI, which means RTI has to continue? Or were they ineligible for another reason and then RTI is going to be closed? So there has to be that communication. Or else we're not sure, because we go through it and I see a lot of go to CST, but then nothing happens, right? They reviewed the eval and we can't find out if they're not ESE, there's no ESE icon and we can't figure out what happened. So we have to go back and look at the notes, and sometimes we can't find notes. Is it still ongoing? But sometimes it's like 3 years old. So, you know, there has to be that communication to figure out what's going on. All right, so some reminders, complete all the fields. This is what's going to generate your SBT icon. Now, this is the tier 2-3 tracking. Anytime a student's going to have a plan in SSS, you're going to complete the tier 2-3 tracking. Completing this is going to give you that tier 2 icon or that tier 3 icon. All right, so let's go into SIS and SSS. And then this, if you have this purple button in SSS, this means you have access to it, to SSS. This is how you know once you put in for access, if you have that access. You'll see this purple button here, this school-based team purple button in SSS. All right. So SSS, some of the important things. To start a plan, you're going to click Initiate Event. That's going to open up a plan for a student. You're only going to do that one time. All right, Camille, we'll take a look at it because that means you have access to it. So if I have this student over here, this is not a real student, and I click Initiate Event, what's going to happen is all of a sudden, I'm going to see this as soon as I click Initiate Event. That's giving him a plan. So don't click it unless you're planning on giving him a plan, because you can't get rid of it. I also included these links down here because somebody was asking me, what do we use as interventions and progress monitoring tools? So these links here I put in, and this will take you to the evidence-based document that gives you the intervention, the target area, and the tools that you can use to progress monitor. So when you get this, you can use that, or I have here the secondary evidence-based one also. You're welcome, Christina. Okay. Remember, everything in pink has to be completed to save it. And remember also, you have to go back and put in your baseline and goals. Starting December, we're going to be spot checking schools because actually the state is spot checking us, Carrie and myself. So we're spot checking schools to make sure that baseline and goals are being input. So we'll just send you a friendly reminder. Hey, don't forget to go ahead and put them in, please. Okay, so now let's go into SIS and SSS, and then I can answer any questions for you in there. So I'm going to go into the demo account. And if you guys want, you can just go into your own account. I'm going to go into the training account. Actually, if you have questions in SSS, go into the training account. Because like I said before, once you click those buttons, you can't delete them. All right, so I'm just going into a student. And here's his SBT.
Joy, I'm sorry, the training one, do we all have that?
You should have it. It's orange. It looks like this, SIS training. If you search SIS, it should come up.
Okay, you're right, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And it'll say SIS training. Now, if you don't have edit access to SIS, you might not have this yet.
I've got the blue one. I don't have the SIS training orange.
So you might have to put in an e-support ticket for SIS training tile. Yep.
Okay.
So if you go back over the directions that I did for e-support ticket and just put in SIS training tile. Yep. Okay. So here's just an example of a student. I'm just going to go through that quickly with you so you know how to input information. So SIS, SBT tracking, right? You're just going to put in the school. That has a drop down, the referral date, the date you received the referral. It doesn't have to be the meeting date, but the date that you received the referral. Let's just say I received it on the 14th. The teacher name, you should get a drop down with all of the teachers. So what was the name of the teacher that gave you the referral? And then the reason. There are so many different reasons here. If it's just an academic referral, you can put in academic. If you start typing, you can go ahead and put that in.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
So as we continue meeting,
Yes.
we're going to continue to update that SBT tracking.
You're going to
So-
add another one, yes.
And so then let's say Kenneth is in tier 2 for 2 years. We're still 2 years later putting the 11-14-2022, the Ramirez or the current teacher.
You're going to put the, you can put the current teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, the
that's-
teacher. Yep.
Okay, because that's what I've been doing is I leave the referral date as like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
but then I'm putting the current teacher, but I
Yep.
didn't know if that was, okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
But then if you have a student on tier 2, right, for 2 years, think about this also and your progress monitoring. Is that gap closing? Is it that you can give it back to the teacher to monitor? Because some students just need tier 2, supplemental tier 2 with the teacher, not being monitored in school-based team. And that's okay through a
Right.
PMP. So just conversations to be had at your meeting. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I also think about this. Eventually they might go into middle school and be in intensive reading. And school-based team might not need to monitor that student at all if they score a 2 or higher at the end of the year. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's just what they need is intensive reading. And school-based team maybe doesn't need to meet on that student anymore. So just conversations, you know?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Denise.
I'm new this year, but there's a lot of teachers that are not wanting to cut the cords, and I'm not 100% sure
I know.
why. But oh yeah, for sure. Thank you.
And we can always meet, Sarah, if you just want to have a discussion. We can always meet just to, I know a lot of them don't want to, but they're doing the PMP, they're doing the interventions. I know. Yep. Go ahead, Denise.
And I'm sure we've discussed this in the many meetings that we've had, but is there like a time frame? So like if I've seen students in like tier 3 for like 3 years, and it's not improving and they're not, is there like a time frame where we kind of say, okay, well, we did tier 2, it didn't work. Tier 3, was it, to then say, I think we should move them to CST, or is that kind of like an SBT team decision? It's not really like a time frame.
Yeah, it's an SBT team decision using the data.
Okay.
You want to really see, are they making progress? Are they closing that gap?
Right.
I mean, if they're not, it's a discussion. It really isn't a team decision.
Okay.
Are they getting further behind? Are they, like, what is it that's happening? Why aren't they
Improving.
closing that gap? Yeah.
Okay.
Is there, and we say it's not a pathway to ESC, but is there possibly a disability?
Right. Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, like I said, I've always seen SBT on the other side, SAI. So now that I'm on this side, I'm just kind of figuring if there's like a time frame. So like we did the, as tier 2, no improvement, tier 3, no improvement. Like what's the time frame to kind of say, okay, now I think it's really time to kind of take a look at this child and take it a little further to CST, and not just keep them struggling until off they go to middle school and they've gotten,
Yeah. I mean, you're going to want to definitely look at the decision tree, see where they fall.
Right.
And look over time. And use that graph. Are they falling further behind? Are they not going to catch up? Is it just going to stay like this?
Right.
And then talk to your team members and make a decision. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And definitely include your school psych.
Right. No, he's always at our meetings. Right.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Let me go back because I see Camille put some questions in the chat. All right, Camille, let's see what you put. You have an ESC meeting. And at that meeting, we discussed CST come up with a goal. That is an SBT meeting, right? Yes. Yep. Yes. Yep. Yeah, that's fine. You don't need admin at your meetings. You need to have 4 members. And if it's a child study team, because it's an ESC student, but you're still looking at possibly another eligibility, it's still SBT. Yep. If that student that already was on SBT, do we do a teacher referral? They're not referring. You still need the documentation from the referral. You do still need all those forms. So the PMP, Camille, does teacher need to use special forms to monitor if they are monitoring? They're going to use the PMP. That's their intervention. Camille, hopefully I answered your question. All right, was there another hand raised?
Right. I just have teachers with lots of PMPs, and they're asking me, what do I do here? So they're supposed to monitor, or are they supposed to use special forms to monitor?
Well, the PMP guides them as far as what their intervention is that they're using. And it's going to ask them what they're using to progress monitor. So have them do the PMP electronically, and it's going to guide them as far as what they need.
Okay, they're asking me. That's why
Yeah, tell them to go and do their PMP electronically, because it gives them drop downs of what it is that they need to do as far as interventions and progress monitoring.
Can they use like Easy CBM and stuff like that, like we
Yes,
use?
they have to use that. Yes.
Okay, so they have to use stuff from the handbook no matter what.
Yep.
Okay, great.
All right, Camille, we'll talk in a little bit.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, and the other Camille put something in the chat. Camille Edgecombe put something in the chat. So we'll talk a little bit also, Camille Edgecombe. Okay. So then on this, we have SBT intervention taken. Let's just say we went to tier 2. So I'm going to put in tier 2. My case liaison, I'm going to do it, or whoever, and then I'm going to review. This is an approximate review date. So I'm just going to put in, I always do 10 weeks because of holidays, vacations, all of that, right? So that's my first meeting. Then I'm going to come down here, put the same referral date in academics, and put in that tier 2 date. That's my first meeting. So down here means I need to go into SSS and complete my SSS form, right? If it was just up over here, let's just say it was a mandatory, I don't need an SSS form. Anything down here will have SSS form. Now, if I have another meeting on this student, I'm going to go ahead and fill out another line, right? Every time I have a meeting, I'm going to fill out a line up here. Let's just say I did all this. I'm meeting again on this student, right? Same referral date. Now, sometimes we close them and we come back and we do have a new referral date for a student, right? Let's say I'm meeting again. This is academics. Meeting in the future. Now, let's say I'm moving to tier 3, right? Fell in the decision tree. Student was still struggling. I'm putting this in. I'm going to save it. After I do this, I have to make sure I'm coming and I'm documenting over here how he progressed. Now, if he fell in tier 3, I know that his progress was poor. Then I need to go back and put in my academic. Now I'm moving him to tier 3. What was the date? 11. All right, I'm going to make up dates, so they're not going to make sense. But now, this is going to show that he is receiving tier 2 and tier 3. Okay, does this make sense? And if I want, I can close this one here. I can close this line here if I want to. This here is going to generate my icon for tier 3. Go ahead, Alexandra.
So for the tier 2, tier 3 at the bottom, every time we have a meeting for that as well, do we add a new line?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to go back to the last one and update the goal progress.
Okay.
Now, don't start going back and doing things that you might have made mistakes on, right? Move forward. But if you're meeting on the student and you want to fix a little bit of it as you're doing it, go ahead and fix it.
And that the CST piece there, is that if what would typically go there?
So child study team, let's say that this student has been receiving tier 3, not making any progress. We meet as a team. We decide to send the student to child study team, right, to gain consent to evaluate. Then we can just put the date that we sent to child study team. Because at any time, when anybody recommends child study team, they have 30 days to gain consent to evaluate, or to schedule a meeting with the parent to gain consent to evaluate. But RTI has to keep going. So this will just help me know that it was sent to child study team.
And you're saying, like, so if there's students where this isn't filled out from previous years, just to not to like go back and fix it, just like from here forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move from here forward. Yep. Because there are so many errors that we see, but take a look at your advanced report. That needs to be cleaned up for everybody. We've been working with a lot of schools trying to clean them up. If you need help, let us know. We'll help you clean them up. Okay, so let's take a look quickly at SSS. When I click SSS, this purple button for this student, Kenneth, I'm going to create a plan. So I'm clicking on SSS. This student, somebody already did it. I wouldn't see anything here if there's no plan. It would be blank, and I would click initiate event. So watch, I'm going to initiate event. It's going to give me 2 plans. That's okay. Watch, initiate event. Watch what happens if I go back to the student. See, now there are 2 plans here. You don't want to have 2 plans. You always want to go have 1 plan and just continue with that plan. Even if the student comes from another school to yours, you're going to go into that plan and just continue. So I created a plan. I'm going to go into view. Oh, I went into the old plan, sorry. And this is the plan I'm going to go into. And I'm just going to put in my information. Case liaison, the date, when the intervention started. Now, the intervention could have been started by the teacher, and if the teacher did everything correct, used the correct intervention, the correct progress monitoring piece, graphed it and everything, I can put this date back to when it was started with that teacher. Let's say that she did it in September. I could put that date in. That's okay that these dates don't align perfect, that they don't align, that this looks like it was backdated. I know everybody here is backdated and they think it's something negative, but it's not. This just shows that the teacher started with the PMP and did that intervention in September, but we didn't really meet in school-based team until November. That's fine. This just shows that the intervention started then. I'm going to put in the next meeting date. And then these drop downs align with that evidence-based document. And they change as I move forward. So if I pick comprehension here, all of these interventions are going to be ones that I can use for comprehension. So let's say I'm using guided reading. These are all going to be progress monitoring tools that I can use with guided reading. These haven't been updated though. We're still working on updating them to match the new names in Easy CBM. Right, so I'm doing comprehension, guided reading, Easy CBM, multiple choice. And then what is my goal? So baseline and goal I can get after the meeting if I need to. And then I'm just going to fill out the rest of this information and then hit save. But watch those videos that I did that really take you through how to do supplemental and intensive plans and go back and forth between the 2. Okay. Any questions on SIS and SSS? General questions. All right. So this is a spreadsheet. We recommend that you have a spreadsheet like this. I'll show you where to find it, and you update it after your meetings. You can change them as you want, as you go, because sometimes you might want to take out some of this information. Maybe you don't want to have certain things in here, or however you want to set it up. Every student on SBT would have information in here. Some people do them in tabs: kindergarten, first grade, second grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade. Every time you meet, you're going to put in some information so you know exactly what each student is working on. It helps to form groups by using this spreadsheet. It helps if somebody comes in with a question. You don't have to go through your files for information. And then after each meeting, you would just go in and update that information in here. So what is the supplemental intervention? Who's the interventionist? What progress monitoring tool is being used? And then as you close cases, you could have another tab, close cases, send to child study team. You could have another tab for that as well. So it really just helps to keep every student on school-based team over here. All right. So this is another place where everything is kept. It is the our portal, MTSS portal. And in these folders, these tiles here, you will find everything that you need. We keep our Adobes in here. We keep forms in here. We keep a list of all the contacts if you would need a file, if you're sending a file or you need to request a file. So let's go take a few minutes and go into that. Go to your portal and type in MTSS. And you'll see this guy with his gear head with the person reading a book. And I'm going to show you where you can find our handbook. And you're going to click on that. Okay. And like I said, you'll find everything you need in here along with the Google Classroom and the Padlet. Those are just more organized for you. The contacts are down here, SBT and district contacts. If you ever need to send files, like I said, or contact who is the school-based team contact at this school, you can just click on there. And there's a list over here. Click on that. And then there's at the very bottom over here, it's elementary, secondary, and then charter schools. If it's in yellow, it just means it's a new leader. Whoops. And then if you click on the SB square, it'll take you back to that menu. And then we have mandatory referrals information here, progress monitoring and graphing information here. All right, let's go into intervention process and tools, and I'll show you where the handbook is. Click on that. Scroll down to FY 22-23 intervention resources and click on that. And then you'll see 3 folders: behavior interventions, elementary, and secondary. So click on either one. If you click on elementary, you'll see that evidence-based document, and underneath that is the elementary handbook. And if you click on secondary, you'll see the handbook and the evidence-based document. And then you can download those if you want and save them. And then again, if you go into, let's see, professional learning resources, and then the second one down, Adobe tutorials. There are a whole bunch of different tutorials we've done, and we've been updating them. And there are new leader training videos. If you scroll down, we keep putting our new leader training videos here. Okay. And then a lot of other folders you can click on just to get some information. There might be a link in the Padlet. There are some links to this, but you should be able to get into this. If you ever have a problem getting into anything, it might be if you're a charter school, you have to log in through your Palm Beach charter, not your school, but your Palm Beach charter schools.org email. All right. And then our email, phone number, email is the best way. Yeah, Winston, you don't have access to Google Docs. What are you trying to get into? You might be logged in through your school email. You have to log in through your Palm Beach Charter School email. Not your school, not the name of your charter school, but yep. All right. Okay. I'm going to stop our recording.